Welcome to my cellar and the 88th Curmudgeon in the cellar. Now, 88, that's an interesting number. My mother signed me up for piano lessons when I was in grade school, and I really didn't care for those 88 keys on that piano, plus the fact that I was hampered by the fact that I can't carry a tune in a bucket. And then when I got into history, 88 was, of course, anybody that's a military historian, is the dreaded German gun. But in this 88, I hope we'll just talk about some fun stuff. Got a bunch of fun stuff to talk about tonight. Some gaming, some not. On a sad note, another one of the old timers, the old standard, the old pillars of gaming has left us. Richard Berg. Richard Berg was a game designer. He was a practicing attorney. He was a lot of things, but he was an incredibly prolific game designer and won a bunch of Charles Roberts Game Design Awards. He also was the designer of, and I mean no disrespect to the dad, he was also the designer of Terrible Swift Sword, which many people felt was the most complicated game ever put up and the hardest to set up in advance, but spoken of fondly nonetheless. Richard was only 6 years older than I am, roughly, and another one of the guys from the old days is gone, and I'm sorry to see. What's next? Oh, let's talk about current television. I'm going to do a little bit of a rant. The four networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, by and large, stink as far as what they want us to watch and call entertainment, and thereby force us to endure the commercials that make it possible. Most of it stinks. There's maybe 3, possibly 4 drama shows or whatever you want to call them that I like. Pardon me. What I do find myself watching a lot of lately, no, not lately, over the years, are shows that deal with the way people do things. Now, some of them having some added drama and stuff like that, and I pretty much ignore that. But when I mean things that do things, I first saw a program several years ago called Swamp Loggers. I found it interesting how they did it, what equipment they needed to go in, what it was involved with bringing the logs out, cutting them to size, all that. The guys that search for gold under the ice in Alaska, the guys and women who go out and dredge through the sands in the summer, gold rush, digging in Alaska, and digging in the Klondike, dangerous catch. What was I? Oh, well, I've told you before, I love battle bots. Axemen. I find it interesting just watching what, I don't care about the drama and guys hollering at each other and all that kind of crap. I understand that. I find interesting how they do it. Like tonight, I watched them take a huge feller down an incredible slope on a mountain with 6 feet of snow and bring it back up. I find that much more entertaining than most of the crap that is on the networks nowadays. And another rant. And this is more of a bemoaning analogy to civil discourse. Every now and again, I will post something on Facebook, or I'll share something. More often, I share something. And if it's in the least bit political, it just turns to shit instantly. And I don't mean disagreeing with the political statement. It's usually, most often, it's a meme. Well, most often, it's a political cartoon, and otherwise, it's a meme. And I think it's indicative of the shit state we find our society in, that we can't talk about what was said in the post or the share of the post. We have to start calling names, and we have to start applying labels. And that's just bullshit. Plain and simple, it's bullshit. I know I'm usually PG-13, but, well, I guess PG-13 is, anyway. It's no wonder nobody can agree on anything if the first thing they got to do is define them by some name or assign them to some political camp or clan or whatever, and start names. When I was a younger person, much younger, there was a Speaker of the House who's a Republican named Everett Dirksen. And the thing about Everett Dirksen was, didn't matter who came up with the idea. If it was a good idea, Everett got it done. There's another one named Sam Rayburn, who was great at getting both sides of the aisle to see the common good. Can't remember the last time we had one that was able to do that, because I can't remember the last time that we weren't so divided that we couldn't even listen to the other guy's idea without immediately saying it's bad. Why? Because it's the other guy's idea. I'm going to quit sharing stuff that has anything to do whatsoever with anything except gaming or generic humor. It's just bullshit. I put them on, I get amused for a few hours or a day, and then I just get disgusted and I delete the things, and I'm not even going to put them up anymore. But I mean, it's really disgusting the way everybody is calling, oh, if you think this, you think that, you're this, and if you think that, you're something else. And, hey, I'm a Democrat that just supports the death penalty and thinks, yeah, we need caps on immigration. But I still identify as a Democrat. I'd never identify with a party that supports Trump or is led by Mitch McConnell. Okay, let's get into gaming now. I got the rant out of my system. What do you think about those narratives, some might say railroaded campaign? Dragonlance. I know it's a bit after your time. Okay, yes, it came out after I left. But it would be interesting to hear your opinions about it. And Margaret Weiss and Tracy White Hickman's work in general. Thanks. Love the show. All right. Let me make it very clear at the very beginning. I consider Margaret Weissman to be my friend. It was my honor 2 years ago to present her with the Gygax Lifetime Achievement Award, because I'd gotten it the year before, and so it was my great good fortune to do that. And I have the utmost respect for her, and I like her. And with Tracy, same thing. I consider him a friend. He's a very, very nice guy in terms of, I was on his Gen Con killer breakfast several times. He was very generous and telling people nice things about me and everything. And he's a great guy. And we used to play Words with Friends a lot until he gave up. Now, having said all that, let's get down to railroad or narrative type games, because I'm not going to criticize Dragonlance. Dragonlance and that concept of a completely sculpted world was, I see, from my imperfect view, I see as the next step out of Appendix N. Appendix N, we threw all these things here. Take these little bits and pieces with Dragonlance and the stuff that followed, Ravenloft and whatever the other ones were. They said, well, wait a minute. Okay, you're having trouble with that? Here's an entire world. Step into it. And it was great for the game, great for the hobby. It was what the hobby needed. It was what the game needed at that time. So I think the introduction of the deep experience of Dragonlance with the books and the great paintings and the modules and whatever, it was a great marketing idea. It was a great thing for the game in its growth, and it was a wonderful root a new root that tree put down and firmly anchored. Narrative or railroad games, I have a personal dislike of. Other people want to play them. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And if you find fun in them, there are some that are fun. And I have written railroad adventures because you got to do this thing. And that's what a module is. It's not a 7 other options to go along. So any module with a goal is a railroad, in that you start at station A and you got to end up at station B. Okay, now that's a railroad by definition. Now, where I had problems with what railroad games became, at some point with one of those horrible numbers additions, it became a thing that you couldn't kill somebody off in part 1 because they had to be around for part 2 to do something. That I find extremely objectionable. Anybody ought to be able to die at any given time. Period. That brings into something that I was following a thread. I saw a thread on Facebook earlier in the week that basically the question was, what do I do when the party doesn't do what I want them to do? Now, I'm pretty sure the context was they got an adventure prepared. It's all laid out. Come on, guys, get off your butts, and why don't you want to go do this? What makes you think there's something else around the corner of just some casual offhand remark I gave you in flavor text? The gazebo incident in Knights of the Dinner Table is a great case in point. They didn't know what a gazebo was, a yard furniture, and thought it was something, and attacked blindly. And okay, that's one example going off the wrong. Having to do something as a DM, naturally, we fervently want them to swallow that worm when it's got that hook in there and go explore this really neat thing, this ruins, this, whatever, and come enjoy the fun that we've prepared. But you can't force them, your players, to do it. There's ways you can get around this. Don't give them options, too many options that are too appealing and that might derail them. A couple of episodes ago, I talked about you write the adventure, you describe a few miles around in vague terms, and you're ready to start. That works. That could work here. I don't like a railroad adventure. I do like the idea. You got to find 4 pieces and assemble them to make this marvelous 5th thing. If you're able to go find them in whatever order you want, or however you discover the clues, or whatever. I abandoned an adventure I was designing where you had to find pieces of a compass rose to determine where you had to go to find. Yeah, anyway, I abandoned it because it got too linear. Linear adventures can be okay. My God, the first set of adventures written, the G series, were extremely linear. Get to the third and defeat, or become smear on the bottom of the giant's boot. So they're very linear, but it's a hard line as a DM to keep them on the track. And sometimes you can teach them a lesson if you want to feel comfortable in that role, and let them get sidetracked down something that's just stupid and uses up their resources, or not lethally, but non-lethally harms them. To use a quick metaphor, use the honeypot they can't get their hands out of. That's one way to do it. And again, I know that Dragonlance wasn't the only one of those, and if it helps the people that buy them and read them and love them to be able to picture a world, that's okay. Because even if 10 people do that, and they all picture Dragonlance, and they all become DMs, and they all find 6 new players, and they all see, if you could sit down and record that very first session that they had explaining whatever they felt was necessary to explain to those 10 groups, you'd have 10 varyingly different explanations, because it would all be interpreted by those 10 people's eyes. I don't know. It's, I like to be able to give my players, when I'm writing adventures, they're pretty linear. I mean, let's face it. But I don't write campaigns. I don't design campaigns. I write adventures. Adventures need to be linear to keep me on track. I wrote an adventure that has a side thing in it, that the side thing is so horribly lethal, and everybody that's gone into it has been so silly to try it that it's wiped out party after party after party. That taught me something. Let's see, what's next? All right. I'm sharing this only because I have no idea what this person was talking about. But it amused me. Does anyone remember the pencil game on paper where we draw some islands, then we got 10 tanks and 10 bombers to place on the islands, very basic islands, and we could drive them up with 3 light taps for the tanks and 5 light taps for the bombers, and then to shoot it was a flick of the pencil toward the target. Man, that was super fun in middle school. No, I have no idea what that game is. And I've never heard of it. But if you had fun, after all, that's what games are all about. They're just here to have fun. They're here to provide us fun. Now, we can also learn from them. We can also derive pleasure from them. But underneath, fun underlies everything that you want to do. Because if you didn't find it fun, at least in the very mildest sense, you wouldn't do it. Fun is pleasing. What do I remember? Valo Milks. Candy bar with a marshmallow puff inside. They were about this big around. There were 2 in a package. And they were also sold single, and they had a cardboard disc with state capitals on them, and theoretically you could collect all the state capitals, send it in, and they'd send you a box of Milks. Well, those little things made the best footballs for playing on top of any slate top table or any smooth wood table. And we used to play football and kick field goals through the fingers, the whole thing. Slide them, and you had to hang it over. Anyway, that's what we played, and that was mostly in high school, actually, in free time. So no, I don't recall that game, but I'm sure we all had silly fun games that we played. Next thing, you had mentioned the Gary's Kids came up with the name D&D. Can you think of any runner-ups to that decision? Actually, just about any combination of fantastical things that you can come up with, they tried. Seriously. And they tried to be alliterative. But not always. And it just, the way it was explained to me, somebody came up with it and they came up with more, but they just couldn't come up with one better than that one. And it was the best, it had been the best one up to that time. And so there were probably, according to Gary, what I remember Gary telling me and what I remember, I think Ernie telling me, they probably wrote down 40 or 50 different possible names over the course of a couple of days. And then they all sat down and started, bantering it about. Let's see. Oh, next one. A set of dice consecrated by the cask. How do I get those? Okay. Anybody that has subscribed and not received the email information on how to get the dice needs to, I guess you got to let me know, and then I'll let my sponsor, Jared, know. Because Jared tries very hard to catch every new subscriber and send them an email. The deal is this. You get a nice set of dice for the postage. The dice are free. Nice, good deal. He's my sponsor. I don't want him to go broke. But I want him to give you the dice if you want them. And while they're not consecrated physically, they have been remotely blessed. Don't want to get too blasphemous here. All right. Last one. And this is a very long one. So I'm going to read it through and then we're going to dissect it. I recently ran a nostalgia OSR AD&D 1E brew mini campaigns from friends and family with the mantra rulings, not rules. We cobbled together enough rules to start, though before the end of the adventure, we were able to get PDFs of all 3 core 1E rule books. Hopefully the copyright is expired or we all took an alignment drift toward chaos. I don't know if it's expired or not. I understand there are sites where it is available for free, but I've only, that's anecdotal. It's hearsay. Chooses the word. The adventure was a journey with several encounters and mini dungeons along the way, with a biggish 100 bad guys versus 100 good guys battle near the end. I got hold of a PDF of chainmail, again, hopefully not under copyright. Well, there again, it depends on which edition you got a copy of. And a PDF of Swords and Spells. And I like the diceless combat system. The attribution page of Swords and Spells was a bit blurry, but it seems to indicate expert editing by someone named Cask. Any relation? If so, would you please tell us a bit about this supplement 5? Finally, Tim, do you know of any forums that allow long posts so I may do a write-up of the adventure? Okay, let's dissect this a bit at a time. On the PDFs, I have no idea personally. Like I said, back when I was real active on Dragon's Foot, there were lots of sources, and all you had to do is ask in the chat room, and somebody would give you a link. So, I wouldn't worry that you drifted too far towards evil. It's not chaos; it's evil. Just so you know. And Swords and Spells. Okay. Swords and Spells was the great-grandson of chainmail. Gary worked on swords and spells for a long, long time. Swords and Spells is the only book in there of those little brown books that I didn't do anything except correct grammar or make something read better. And it's Gary's system from the beginning. And once I started reading it, I realized that this is what he'd been working toward, and I left it alone. I think it's a brilliant idea. It has no dice, no luck. It's an attrition. It's an attrition game. And what it does, if you read through it and you go to the appendix at the end and read it, and then go read the rules, and then the appendix makes a whole ton of sense. And it's the way you have to do it the easiest. I mean, you could start at the beginning with the rules, but it's a lot easier to just skim the appendix, and then you'll see things drop into place. It's designed for mass encounters. When you come up against 112 orcs, or the 65 goblins or whatever, it's attrition. It's the result of a feature in design that was prevalent in what we were doing, and that is, what can you expect for the average damage? That's how we decided how many of which dice a given weapon would get or a given spell would inflict, based on the averages. We would shoot for an average that we felt was right, and then figure out the best way to get there. This has done that for you, and it says, okay, these guys armed with this, armored by that, attack those guys armed with that, armored by this, and this is how they start whittling each other away. Now, there are other things about morale and being scared of the other guy, and all that kind of stuff. That's all in there. But the resolution is very clean, very straightforward. For big battles, you can also use the Chaos Wars. The Chaos Wars were written by, for Ralpartha. I'm familiar with them. I helped clean up one of the later editions, and they work very well for a mass battle. I wrote a mass battle scenario for them for their big Chaos War Kickstarter. Those two are the two that I would recommend you look at, because they're made with fantasy. If I was looking for one that I wanted to adapt, then I might look at another one of Gary's designs, and that's Classic Warfare. Classic Warfare had an interesting little thing to it, that they had feared enemies. There were, because it was classical, there were certain other types of troops that certain troops didn't do well against. You could do the same thing by just substituting the troop type for a monster type. Involves some work. Swords and Spells is there. Chaos Wars is there. As far as writing up a long, lengthy thing of this, start a blog. YouTube's free. Get a camera. Get a picture of Sofia Vergara and Joe Manganiello on either side of you and hang up behind you. And tell about it. And if you've got a good storytelling voice and a good manner, people will start listening. Don't tell the whole story. Tell one. Have your friends spread it around. Have your friends listen to it. And if it gets hits, do another one. Here I am, 88 numbered ones later. I'm getting close to 100 altogether. That's how I started. I started doing convention reviews. Go figure, huh? Let's see. But yeah, for long posts, no. There was something else I was going to mention that flashed to me as I was talking. Something that I thought would be pertinent. I guess I can't think of it right now. AppleCon in September. TotalCon in November. What else? Game Day coming up. You should check out the Founders Day thing that Luke Gygax is running on Twitch. They got a bunch of big name current designers and people, and they got industry people running. They're running 3 different games, and they're raising money for a real good charity. So I wish I had the name of it right now. I don't. Maybe I'll put the name of the event at the end of the description on this, so that you'll see a link. I'll put it in the description by itself, and you can go check it out and go watch it. It's on Gary's birthday. Let's see, what else other than that? I really can't think of anything else, so I guess comments are what run this engine. Send me comments. Been playing a buttload of Scythe lately, online. We play when we get together. It's a fascinating game. It doesn't lose its appeal. Harder than hell to beat. That's why I love it. Check it out. It's on Steam. In the meantime, Dodata Gobi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. PSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.